Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. We've got our mod collection demo shop update this week. And if I had to sum this week up in 3 words, it's unicorn rainbow barf. Look at all these funky colors, specials, some standards, SGs. I mean, there's just a little bit of everything for everyone this week. So let's go ahead and dive in. And we'll start with the Les Paul Special Turtle series. These are some pretty colorful Les Paul specials. I'm not a huge fan of this series, but I like the inventiveness behind it. So we've got Turtle Purple with a purple headstock, Turtle Red with the red and matching knobs. You've got an orange one, which is very similar to the red, but hey, check out the fretboard on that one. That matches really well with the orange. And then you've got Turtle Blue. Now, out of these 4, I would probably choose the blue. However, when you flip them over to the backside, they're all green. However, when you get onto their headstocks, you can actually see they used a tortoise shell material for the truss rod cover, play off the whole turtle tortoise type thing that they've got going on here. But what I really like between all of these is the fact that they've really masked that Gibson logo off very well. Sometimes on colored headstocks, you can still see like a little bit of a black layer around them. One other small feature you might have missed is they actually have uncovered P90 pickups here in their toaster pastry style that also has the tortoise shell color. I'm honestly not too sure where the theme turtle comes from because I don't think I've ever seen turtles like that. If anything, it reminds me of soccer or like these countries' flags. So if you're from any of these countries that have like red, green, and yellow within them, I'm sure you absolutely love these things. But they were each priced at $2,000, a small premium to pay for all the different colors. Next up, technically within that turtle series yet, is this SG Tribute in silver satin. Now, how is this part of those? Well, they called it Snapper Silver Satin, like Snapper Turtle. A keen-eyed buyer would have also saw that the truss rod cover is also done up in that tortoiseshell material. But besides the finish, it looks like they gave it purple pickup rings, Dirty Fingers pickups with interesting pickup covers. So Dirty Fingers have a double roll of pull pieces, right? And normally those pickups don't get covered because of that reason, but this one, they just have slits. It's like a mouth type thing, super villain style. That actually looks kind of cool. And just in case you wanted one of those freaky specials, but in a higher end Les Paul, here's a 50 Standard in Reptile satin top. I wish they would start to do more gloss refinishes. Doing all these satins, it's just kind of getting old. Like, I get it, it's easier for them to produce and they only have so much time to produce each of these every single week, but I would like to see more gloss refins. But they left the back natural. This one kind of reminds me of Gecko Burst, but not exactly. Wasn't a big fan of that. Now here's a cool one of the Les Paul Moderns in Electric Violet Magic. So anything purple is gonna sell, right? And when you add sparkles to it, yeah, you can tell it's gonna be a lot of fun. Now from this photo, it looks like it turns more of like a darker violet in certain lighting situations and more of like a bluish purple over here. So I would bet that would look pretty sweet in person. I like the fact that they put the clear pick guard on it, clear knobs, and that ebony fretboard goes really well with that finish. And it doesn't look like they changed anything on the back. That does look significantly darker than a lot of Moderns I've seen though. That could just be the color of the mahogany that they used though. And then check out this creepy SG Custom. So from far away, you can kind of tell, okay, something's going on here. They've got 2 single coils and a humbucker in the bridge that's actually a P94, so that's technically a P90. So at first I was like, freaky SG Custom for $3,600? All right. But the thing that turned me off on this one is if you really zoom in here, it's hard to tell. It looks like they did this single coil pickup in the middle properly. However, they had a neck pickup route that they had to fill in, so it looks like they just put a custom pickup ring around it. I mean, had that had just been a regular slanted one routed very similar to this, I think that would have looked a little bit nicer, but at least you have the option. If you want to have a humbucker single coil middle, you could do further modifications to this one. The back was just left black, but it's interesting to read that they actually use single coil Melody Maker pickups. I wonder if they actually came from Melody Makers, because if so, I don't know if I'd want that in my custom shop Gibson, but generally Gibson doesn't put single coil pickups in hardly anything else, so that might just be a name they gave to them. And here was a 335 done up very similar, except for this time they just left humbucker and added that single coil in the middle. But this one appears to have a small bracket around it, and it's all ambered out. They changed out the knobs, they also ambered over the headstock, and they even heavily aged the side of it. So kind of an interesting one if you were just looking for something unique. It's kind of a way to get an Alvin Lee signature one on a budget. And next up, Gibson is now introducing Color Series. So this one is Dark Metallic Cherry. You've got a 335 figured, you've got another 335 figured, a little bit more expensive, seemingly better shape, Or is it really just because one has a pickguard and one doesn't? But then the big kicker is you've got another dark metallic cherry 335, but this one wasn't figured, and it is significantly cheaper. But here's the problem. It's a solid finish, so I don't think you can see the figuring anymore. So that's a bit of a letdown. Pretty much the only major difference would be, do you prefer dot inlays on a 335, or would you like blocks with a pickguard or blocks without a pickguard? In this situation, I think it was worth saving some money on that. However, each of these got the colored over logo on the headstock, and they also did that finish on the back. Now who knows, maybe this is slightly transparent and we just can't tell in the photos. This is one of those dark finishes that you really can't tell what it's gonna look like until you get it in person. The second series they did this time was Winter Magic. So first off, we have a Les Paul Custom. Absolutely beautiful guitar, and what made this one even special is it's a 57 reissue in a 2-pickup variation. So that means it's going to have a mahogany top underneath here and is going to be built to 57 specs. These are some of the most expensive Les Paul Customs. That's why this one was nearly $7,000. I was tempted by this one, but at the end of the day, I decided I didn't want to buy it. But what I really liked about this Winter Magic finish series is that they numbered them 1 out of 6. Now it's not 6 Les Paul Customs, it was 6 guitars. The next one was an Explorer done up like that. We also had one of these 70s Flying V's. We haven't seen Gibson play around too much with acoustics, but this Hummingbird Studio got it, as well as this ES335. Now I think this photo right here shows off the finish the best. You can tell it's got a little bit of sparkle metallic going on in here. It would actually probably be a very nice finish. As far as the numbers, they just wrote them very small by the serial number, like this one was 6 out of 6, but here we go. It's kind of like the Ebony Prism Modern Flying V, how it's going to have that multicolor chromatic effect over top of a blue. That's what this is looking like to me. But these were complete refins. However, despite looking like they're gloss in the photos, if we can believe the spec sheet anyways, it's a satin refinish. But from the photos, these really do look like gloss to me. But here's the last one within the series. This was probably the most tempting of the entire thing. So this is one of the Guitar Center exclusive SG Darks that we reviewed a couple of months ago. So instead of being a bright cherry red finish, it's got this blue, and that works so well with that rich light fretboard, the blacked out inlays. I really like that the Gibson logo is just blacked out instead of being blue, because that's just how this model originally shipped. So that was a pretty cool one from the blue series. Then we got a couple other cool finishes. So this one was called Tuna Steak Burst. It's a regular 60s Les Paul Standard. However, when you really zoom in here, you compare it to like a piece of tuna, it makes sense because you've got like that white fatty layer on the outside, and then you get the red dark meat that's all ribbed or whatnot with the flame figuring. But the back of this one was pretty interesting. It's just a single burst right here. It gives me 34 burst-esque vibes, but on the neck this time instead of the body. But it kind of reminds me of like that Fender baseball bat or like a really nicely finished chopping board. So maybe that's what they were going for. I'm not sure. Interestingly enough, this is a gloss top with satin back and sides. So somebody who eats tuna and loves it, I could understand why they would want this thing. In fact, I actually had somebody reach out to me. They're looking for this. So if you bought it, it's not for you. Feel free to contact me. Maybe we can work something out because he's outside of the US. This was one of those ones that grew on me the more I had time to look at it. But at the time of launch, it's like, yeah, I don't have time to look at fishy guitars. Then lastly, we have this SG Standard bass. Generally speaking, it's not all that exciting. I believe they added some controls right here, and we've got a toggle switch. But what's fascinating is they have a stereo output jack on this one. So if you need that in your life, this was a good option for you. I always like it when they get fancy with the electronics and not just the finishes. But that's it for the mod collection. Let's check out the demo shop, starting European style this time. There was an absolute steal of a deal on this. I saw it show up in my Reverb feed and I was like, what is wrong with it? And that guitar is this, a Les Paul Custom Koa Top for only a little under $3,000, including value-added tax and everything. Now you gotta remember, unless you're in the Netherlands or France, you can't actually buy from the European demo shop. But they have a pretty hefty tax built into that price. But let's look at this thing. Not only do we have an absolutely stellar Koa top on this one, I mean, there's Koa tops out there that you can buy yet today. It's more of a limited edition thing rather than something that's always in production, but it did look similar to Maple, just a little bit darker. But the next fancy feature about this one is look at your inlays and your fretboard right here. It's abalone. Move to the headstock of the guitar. It is also abalone. So generally speaking, a guitar like this brand new from Gibson would be about $8,500. why is it only a little under $3,000? The first thing I thought when I saw this was it has to have a headstock repair. And they didn't disappoint. However, that's a really good repair. The only reason you can even see it and it's still kind of ugly is the fact that they didn't do any finish touch-up work. But since that's a clear, natural finish, I don't think it'd be that hard to touch that up to make it look nearly perfect. But furthermore, what's weird about this is it says it was repaired at the factory. Why is it in the Netherlands then? Why didn't Gibson just sell it off in the US market? Especially if they're going to fire sale it, because repairs, generally, at max, they take off maybe 50 to 60% of the value if it's a really ugly one. So $8,500 brand new, knock it off by half, you're at $45. $45 still seems kind of expensive for that, so you might have to reduce it down to about $35,000 to $4,000 until you find a buyer. But to get that, all taxes included for $600 under that, that's just ridiculous. That is one headstock repaired guitar that I would have bought because that's just a cool fancy one. And then the EU demo shop wasn't done with that. That thing sold fast, but they listed some prototypes. So here we have an ES335 59 reissue in a thin satin finish labeled as a prototype. Let's look at this thing. So we got some weird cream pickup rings, looks like no pick guard, and the special feature about this one is the thin finish. Kind of a weird burst on the back of that one too. Don't really quite care for that, but it looks like a glass that's been filled up. They could call it the glass full burst. But I kept looking for something that, made it even more special. Like it's one of those prototypes that they stamp after the fact that it's a prototype. I like it better when it's like written on in Sharpie and not quite that one. But they're asking $10,500. Okay, here's how you price prototypes. You have to determine, is the model desirable? For a 355-59 reissue, yes. However, we don't know what year this was for. I mean, if this was the prototype of an original 59 335, yeah, the value would be off the charts. But this is just a random reissue, not the first time they did it. They were just playing with finishes, so I don't see this one being too desirable by collectors. I guess now that I've noticed it on the back, they also did that glass full burst right here. So besides the glass full finish and the satin nature of it, there's not really too much special about this one. I'm not quite sure they're going to get anywhere near that. And here's another prototype they listed, a Les Paul Studio double cut. I don't think we ever saw this make it into production. There are double cut collectors out there, but this looks very similar to like the standard variation. The only thing that looks different upon this one is the fact that they didn't actually put binding on it. They took a page out of PRS's book and just left the maple cap exposed. I think they could have sold that. But in the end, the reason why they probably didn't is it's not different enough from the regular double cut standards. So this one, I could see somebody being interested in that. $8,000 seems like a bit of a stretch though. I could see someone paying $5,000 though. They also have that vintage custom Lite prototype on their shop, but this thing's been here for 3 months with no takers. I mean, this is a real prototype from 1986 of kind of a cult classic model. Remember, I was telling you guys earlier, it depends what model and like what kind of special features it's got. This is a cult classic model. People like custom lights. And to have a prototype of the original custom light, that's really cool. Like I would have no problems paying like $8,000 for this thing. 13's a bit of a stretch, but hey, it's there if you want it and you can actually get it out of the shop. But those were all the new ones from this week, but I mean, they still got all this stuff if you're interested in anything and you're located in one of the 2 countries that can buy from them. So now let's pop on over to the USA demo shop. A couple of interesting ones. Starting off, we've got a 60 Les Paul Special double cut. You don't see these in the demo shop too often, and $3,000 for a newer one is not that bad of a price. This 50 standard P90, they modified it to have a mini humbucker in the bridge with a black P90 there, but I nicknamed this one Loudmouth because doesn't that look just obnoxiously large, like a mouth going, ah! And I really like the way that the clear pickguard puts like a dark shadow on it right there. It just adds to that whole effect. It's strange, and then when you get to the back, they forgot to put back plates on it. No, they're playing off the clear top right here, so they have clear back plates on it. And it looks like it has like some hanger rash or something right there. Here's an SJ200 Deluxe in Rosewood back and sides. Top of the line SJ model. You can see the Rosewood there. However, I like the headstock on this one. It's got the old style Gibson logo. And oh my goodness, just like that Taylor we unboxed the last unboxing episode. We've got like the Ivoroid binding around each inlay. That's a little bit too fancy. And it looks like we even have gold frets on this thing. Wow, I didn't know they were still doing that. And an abalone rosette. Here was a 56 reissue in a double gold finish. We were looking at that last week. It's great because it's also gold on the back. This is not a gold top. This is an all gold Les Paul. That could be fun for $4,400. And then get this, we have a 60th anniversary 61 SG here. However, they've modified it to have black plastics, but not just any black plastics. I'm just now realizing this for the first time. Gibson. Okay. Check out my review for the 61 reissue. It looks like this. You can see it's got the small pickguard on it. This one appears to have a Batwing. How did they do that? Look, they still have the small one on here that's multiply, but they essentially cut up a Gibson USA multiply style pickguard for like a 68 SG. And they just kind of butted it up where that one ends. Like, I see why they did it, because they might have had some screw holes exposed on the side, and it makes it interesting. I just thought it was a cool black pickguard, but no, there's something a little bit more to that, because you're still going to have the pickup rings right here. I'm betting that's probably going to look like a hot mess in person, but it looks okay in photos. But a black 68 guard SG Custom all done up like this, that's a really nice looking guitar when it's white. The only big defect on this one is like maybe the paint got too thick in these areas and either has a run over spot or it's like a finish check right along where the body's contour is. That's strange. I've never seen that before. But now let's jump into the ones that I know have sold. Look at this thing, 50 Standard P90. They bucketheaded it. So you got the red kill switch right here, but then they put these little on-off switches instead of your volumes, so you can turn it on and off. And oh my goodness, I didn't realize it. The tones are done the same way with black style switches. I thought those were still knobs. Okay. So it's cool that you got the kill switch, but I don't know if the red works with this like double gold finish and blacked out hardware. Maybe they could try this again on a pure white one and it could pull off the look a little bit better, but look at that. I don't care if you care about any of these modifications or not. The back on that one is just stunning. So much ringy wood grain, and you get the larger rings on this side. The neck even has some of that going on too. Add in the fact that it's the P90 pickups, that just made it extra unique. So they call them alter tone switches. So it sounds like they're going to make it different, but then the black ones are on and off switches. Whoever got that, I'd be interested to hear some brief sound samples to what these alter tone things are doing. Next up, we had this P90 in Satin black and white burst. We've seen this before. It's been a long time, but we've definitely seen this black and white finish, and it's not just because it's silver burst. They did it on this exact same guitar before, and it sold quickly, so hey, why not do another one? I like the way that you can see the wood grain underneath this silver burst. This Les Paul Studio Plus kind of convinced me it was a standard. I didn't realize there wasn't binding on it at first, especially when I got to the back, because it's got that same like figured mahogany that sometimes the standards do. So I had to take a double take on here why it was so cheap. It's because it's a Studio Plus. Interestingly enough, from late 2020, I'm not sure what retailer had Studio Pluses at that time. And then lastly, this weird photo. It's like they didn't quite get their white balance right. I mean, it just goes to show you, your photos can look fantastic or terrible just by a few tweaks of your camera's settings. It can be very frustrating at times to produce video content and take pictures. But that was pretty cheap for one of these traditional Pro 5s. All right, troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed this week's recap. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.